Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of our Industry 4.0 in Focus, Automation Alley's new weekly virtual event series dedicated to our just released 2020 Technology and Industry Report. So each week, we're taking a deep dive into a topic covered in this year's report. This week's topic, the promise of 5G, a manufacturing game changer. Or I might say a manufacturing game changer. So I think we're going to find out from our guests today what the answer is. So as we all know, connectivity forms the backbone of manufacturing operations. And the new 5th generation of mobile networks will be the catalyst for Industry 4.0. So I'm pleased to be joined this morning by two of our report authors, Dr. Anca Sala, the Dean of the College of Engineering at Baker College, and Dr. Patricia Chatman, the Dean of Henry Ford College's School of Business, Entrepreneurship, and Professional Development. Thanks to both of you for being here.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Anca and Pat. So the first thing I need to do is say thank you for the work you put into the 2020 report. It really is a fabulous report this year, as it always is, but you've done great work. Before we get started, though, I'd like to mention, just so everybody who's listening, Automation Alley members have access to the report for free. You can log into our member portal at automationalley.com and click on the resources tab. I think it's a 100 and X page report covering all these different topics around Industry 4.0. Today's is a great one. So Anca, Pat, let's get started. A lot of hype around 5G technology and its potential to create this explosive growth. And that's probably, is it hyperbole or not? But they talk about this explosive growth that's going to happen in manufacturing. What are some of the main manufacturing benefits that I need to be thinking about as people talk about 5G technology? Let's start with you, Anca.
Thank you, Tom. So I think you mentioned in your introduction how important connectivity is for manufacturing, for the manufacturing industry. So really what 5G is able to achieve is to enable a very high number of machines, of objects and people inside the factory to communicate at very large speeds with each other and to transmit large amounts of data. And this will be key to unlocking the smart factory. And it will really increase the flexibility and efficiency of the operations. And this is going to be possible because 5G technology has some very important features. So first of all, we mentioned the fast speed. Data rates with 5G will increase about 10 times. So from 1 gigabit per second to 10 gigabits per second approximately. We mentioned the connectivity, so the ability to support a very large number of connected devices. And this is not just the number of connected devices, but the density. How many can you have in a certain area? So 5G technology will be able to reach up to 1 million connected devices per square kilometer. There's another feature, the low latency, which is going to go down to under 10 milliseconds. But then there are other things which are the increased reliability. So we are talking about 99.99%. So the network will work all the time reliably. It will have some increased security features. And then something also important, it will be low energy operation. And so there will be opportunities to save the life of the battery. So maybe reach 10 years with one battery. So all these things are features which are going to enable this explosive growth that you mentioned, Tom.
Wow. So Pat, anything to add on that?
So just a couple of things, the low latency, it's going to take that down to milliseconds. So it's going to allow for further development in some of these high performance areas, such as automation control and autonomous vehicles. But it's also going to enable some cutting edge in Industry 4.0 technologies, like augmented, reality. That doesn't roll off the tongue. So,
it never does.
and then another introduction is network slicing. And I think we're probably going to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it now. So what the heck is network slicing? By the way, I'm supposed to be an Industry 4.0 expert, right? This is the first time I ever heard the term network slicing. So what is it and why is it important When I read about it, I thought this is huge. So what is it about network slicing, Pat, it's going to be so interesting for 5G in manufacturing?
So the easiest way to kind of explain it is that, you know how everything is kind of like on one network now. So you've got one big network. Network slicing is going to enable you to compartmentalize those VPNs. So you'll have one where you have one big one, you can slice that into 5 different ones. And it's also going to enable you to share your network. So, but it also will help in isolating, because for some threats, we know now with the Internet of Things, everything can be hacked. So versus you being hacked and it completely going across your entire network, you know, it can be isolated into one. Then it also enables organizations to monetize that, right? So they can make money from slicing those various networks and sharing that data and that information.
Wow, that kind of blew me away. And I don't think our audience perhaps can appreciate from a technical perspective how huge that could be. Being able to create unlimited numbers of VPNs where everything is sort of secured in its own little tunnel, so to speak, sharing information and protecting from all the others. That really opens up this new avenue. So if we oh, by the way, before I forget, so our listening audience, there's a button on your Zoom screen that says Q&A. Please click on that button and ask us a question. We can see them come in. And if I like it, I'll ask it. Oh, no, I'm kidding. We'll try and get to as many questions as we can with the time that we have. We're really respectful of your time. We only want to be here just for 30 minutes or less. But if you ask a question, we'll see if we can get our experts, Anca and Pat, to chime in on them. So we'll be looking for those. So back to our questions. So 5G is accelerating factory automation. Some people, you know, I think it's going to be hundreds of billions. Some people talk about adding trillions of dollars to the global economy in a relatively short period of time over the next 3, 4, 5 years. Who's leading this charge? And where are we today in terms of making 5G a reality, especially in terms of the economic benefits? Let me start with you, Anca, on that.
So where we are today is, of course, 5G. We all talk about it mostly from the point of view of the consumer and the cellular. But there have been some pioneers who started to incorporate 5G in manufacturing. And so the leaders pretty much are companies like Ericsson and Nokia. And then even in the automotive industry, Audi and BMW started to utilize some 5G applications for their manufacturing facilities. And we also have Stanley Black & Decker doing some experiments too. And yes, we are talking about trillions of dollars as impact from the manufacturing side of things annually, estimated to happen until 2023. But the reality is that for most manufacturing companies, they really are at the very beginning of this road. Most of them have not started, but they are recognizing the importance of the technology. And so now they are in some sort of planning stage, thinking about it, maybe considering to set aside some resources for that. But for most people in the manufacturing industry, this is only something that is going to come in the future. But it's good to look at the case studies because Ericsson, Nokia, and others have published what kind of benefit they obtained by doing these pilots. And it is very promising. So more to come for sure.
Yeah. So Pat, I'll ask you the next question. So as 5G unleashes all these capabilities, especially around the industrial Internet of Things, or known as IoT, some people hear, how will companies be able to capitalize on all these opportunities around 5G and IoT?
So one of the things is that it'll allow manufacturers to capture data from all different places within the manufacturing environment. They can get actual manufacturing data about process performance, quality, and conditions. So it'll enable the manufacturer to work more efficiently. And we keep hearing this over and over, but it is true. They'll be able to operate efficiently, but faster.
Fantastic. That it's almost like it's a step change world that we have to sort of pay attention to. It's not here yet, but boy, when it comes, you better understand how to actually apply it, because it's going to create enough efficiencies and advantages that in a world that we live in auto, where margins are thin, you have to stay up on those advantages, or you're going to be in trouble. So Anca, let me ask you, with the influx of data at these 5G speeds, going from 1 gig to 10 gig, which probably means nothing to anybody, but that's just super fast, super fast speeds. Cybersecurity is obviously this huge concern. And manufacturers, I think, are actually well aware of the cybersecurity concerns they have. If there's anything that came out of our reports over the years, is the awareness of cybersecurity threats and what our manufacturers need to be doing, big or small. That's top of mind, almost to the point where it's skewed, that it's too top of mind related to all the threats and opportunities they have. But with that said, so everybody's kind of aware of cybersecurity. How can manufacturers prepare, especially as it relates to 5G?
That's absolutely a concern. And so the way things have worked historically, things were safe because pretty much networks were wired, right? And they were isolated from the outside world. And now, of course, we're talking about opening it up in a way if we go to 5G technology. So really the expectation is, there will be cyber attacks. And the architecture of the 5G system is pretty complex. So the possibility to attack, multiplies. There can be increased points of attacks, and that attacks can come from local or from remote place. They can be at physical level, they can be at logical level. So it is important for the manufacturers to consider that this is a critical element. They have to be aware. But on the other hand, the technology itself will have some enhanced security features built in. And we already talked about the network slicing and the private networks that you can set up. So it is possible to keep things secure. You just have to be aware to consider this very important, and then just do what you have to do and things will work out.
Yeah. So with that, so we know 5G is coming. By the way, Dan, I see your question. Dan Furman asked a question about the transition from 4G to 5G. We'll get to that, Dan. So thanks for putting that up. And if anybody else has questions, please add them. So Pat, so 5G is going to be awesome. It's going to be the best thing we've ever had. Everybody's going to race to it. What does this mean for the workforce? Right? I mean, how do we help the workforce? I would feel a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking, as we were preparing for this presentation, and then also in the work that we did in writing the article, for the average consumer, it's probably not going to mean anything other than my phone. When I dial it, things go faster, Yeah. But if you actually want a job, in this, you're going to use your phone in your job, but you actually want a job, employment in this, to prepare the future workforce, professionals need to adapt, reskill, retool for the needs for Industry 4.0. And so we know that individuals, professionals already have some transferable skills. They really need to take a look at those skill sets to see where they may need some additional retraining to prepare for this new technology. Because we know we're now in the age of digitization. And if, computers, the internet and things of this nature are not a part of your world, you could get left behind fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. So rapid deployment of these new technologies, they're happening very, very fast. And education hasn't quite caught up to where industry is. That's the reason why these conversations and these partnerships between labor market intermediaries and industry and education are important, because there's going to require some different technical skills. And we need to make sure that we are teaching those technical skills in the classrooms and introducing them in the classrooms. So individuals, when they go into the marketplace, they have expanded job tasks and they have these abilities for these various work activities that they're going to be introduced to, so they can make an immediate contribution in the workforce and be value added.
So that's a great answer. I want to shift a little bit and say, okay, what about the future workforce? What about, you guys are in the business of creating future workforce. So as educators, and in educational institutions, a lot of people are critical of the speed with which educational institutions are moving. So what do you guys do? You're both deans. You really help me understand, what can educational institutions do to ensure your graduates have the skill sets to meet this industry need? Maybe start with Anca.
Yeah, I think we gotta keep in touch all the time with industry and have industry as a partner, so that we know what they need. We try to bring in projects, right? Projects which come from industry, from the real world. We try to bring in speakers. We try to, and of course, we offer our students opportunities to do internships. So we work a lot there. There's a lot of work which is done at this interface. But it is challenging. It is challenging because of the speed with which things evolve, like Pat also mentioned. But this is the only way we can do it, right? If we work in isolation, this is not going to produce all the benefits that we are looking for. So partnering with industry in any way, shape, and form is what we need to do.
Pat, you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I think Anca's right. We need the partnerships with Automation Alley, who's a great convener in bringing all of us together to have these very important conversations. But it's industry, it's labor unions, it's secondary partners. It's all of us coming together, because we know this ecosystem includes workforce and workforce governmental agencies. And I always think of, if it isn't at the 2-year level, then we know it's definitely not at the secondary level. So we need to know at each stage in our educational experience, what should we be working on to develop the future workforce? Because the future workforce is now. They're in high school, they're in middle school, it's happening now. So what are these skill sets? What is the knowledge set? What are going to be the future job tasks? What do we need to be focusing on and skilling individuals up? And then that means that we actually need industry in the classroom. We need industry partners as educators, because as educators in the classroom, they are bringing those technologies and introducing them to our students. And then, as Anca said, we need more project-based education. And then we need more work-based education, where we can take the classroom into the industrial environment. Everything doesn't have to happen on a college campus. If we can transition it there into that environment, there's a wealth of information that is going to go beyond the scope of what we have with the technology we have within our environment.
Yeah, great answer. So let's take a question from the audience. I feel like a real host when we do that. I'll be in my trailer after this, by the way. So, so Dan Furman asked, can we get a quick summary of technological changes in 5G relative to 4G and earlier? I think we touched on that, Anca, just about our first question, but maybe we can reiterate, the speeds and the ability to support high volumes. And Anca, I'll throw that over to you.
Yeah, so the 5G technology, some people might see it as an increment of a 4G, but actually it is much more than that. It has capabilities which go beyond, just the next generation. And yes, increasing the speed 10 times tells us something, right? And then, yeah, the latency, that's the piece. So today, the latency with 4G is about 60, 80 milliseconds, and it will become less than 10. So again, it's a big change in that. In principle, 5G could do it all. So today we have a combination. We have the 4G, we have Wi-Fi, and then we mentioned that maybe machines are connected through Ethernet inside the factory. So 5G could replace all of this. However, it is not expected that that's going to happen immediately. It could replace them in principle. It will have the capability, but that's going to take some time. So Wi-Fi is also going to a next generation. It's going to Wi-Fi 6, which also will be an improvement. And so the expectation is these things will still work together at this time. But the capabilities of 5G are tremendous. Again, the ability to have thousands, hundreds of thousands of devices in a small place connected together without losing signal. So that's why the reliability was so important. You know, you can put them together, but if they stop working, what have you achieved? So we're talking about having them there and the network working all the time. So huge benefits.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask a question that piggybacks on that, which is, you know, we have to get ready for a world, and this could be both an opportunity and also scary as all get out, which is if the latency becomes really low, the bandwidth is very high, and it's secure, I can drive any machine in the world remotely. Mm-hmm. Therefore, whether you're big or small manufacturer, my workforce I can pull from around the world. I could have a high-skilled person in Detroit run the machine remotely, or I could have a high-skilled person in Vietnam run my machine in Macomb County all day long, right? And then I have robots that physically grab the stuff because it's real time. The latency is so low, it's as if I'm sitting right there. Now, that scares me because we're still a high value, right? We're a very high value, high wage country. And I think, oh God, here we go again. So any thoughts on that, guys? You know, what's coming or how we might address that?
Well, in terms of job loss or
how do we compete, right? Where the world keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah. What's your views on that? Maybe Pat, you got probably a good answer on this.
Yeah, you know what? You know, my thoughts are, the reason why I went, and it's probably horrible, I went directly to job loss, but
no, but it's a threat, right? It's a real threat.
Because, you know, but that's what most people think, you know, when they hear about all this new emergent technology, they think that, you know, if we, you know, more, you know, Internet of Things, you know, an industry of things, you know, more communication between computers talking to computers, robots talking to robots, you know, why do you need a human, right? But we know that with autonomous vehicles and with the emergence of 5G, you know, that even though there are some occupations that may be impacted by autonomous vehicles, we see more occupations that will emerge as a result of 5G and Industry 4.0. And so, and we went to a conference not too long ago that we don't see a lot of significant changes in existing job classifications. You know, we actually will always see new job classifications, but not a lot of elimination of job classifications. So I think it's very important for individuals to understand that, you know, as technology changes, as industry changes, as these new technologies emerge, you will have to learn new things. You will have to be a lifelong learner because our world of work, the environment of work is changing. Everything is not touch. So that's kind of I know that's kind of like a soapbox, but
can I just add something, which is absolutely what Pat was saying. But the point is that this discussion has happened in the past too, because we introduced automation, right? We introduced robots, and the jobs are still there, but they are different jobs. So
Yes.
that's the idea. There are different jobs. They require different.
Has a 2 million job deficit, right? It still
Exactly.
has a 2 million job
Yeah.
deficit.
Exactly. The jobs are there, but they do require lifelong learning, and they require things which might traditionally not have been thought about in manufacturing, like learning programming, some kind of, all these digital skills. But on the other hand, these are very interesting jobs. I mean, these are not jobs that, you have to learn, but they're exciting, I think. And it is scary, but at the same time, it's quite an exciting world that keeps getting created.
And automation and 5G, people talk that was the job killer. I still believe, and Automation Alley believes, it wasn't automation that killed the jobs. It was low-cost labor in other countries that drove manufacturing out of the US.
Right.
And as everybody around the world automates, then what the equation becomes is, I need to produce where I sell, because that's the most efficient mechanism.
Right.
And so you're going to see a big wave of manufacturing come back. It'll be automated, but all the jobs that maintain those machines and robots, there'll be millions of those jobs. So we have to get ready. It's not going to look the way your father's manufacturing looked. It's going to be much more sophisticated, and the US can compete. If it's machine against machine, the US wins. If it's labor against labor, US has a tough time. So we lived through that 40 years. Now we're going to go into another 40-year cycle where it's all about machine against machine, and we're positioned pretty darn well in the world. So you guys hit it spot on. So we got questions coming in now fast and furious, and we only have a couple minutes left. So let me ask real quick, when do you expect 5G to be available? That's from Janice Gilliland.
Well, 5G is available right now, and from a consumer perspective, I had to get a new cell phone, and I walked into the Sprint store, and I could have got, one of the because now it's old, right? Old 4G phone, but I was like, no, I don't want that. I want faster, better, so I got a 5G phone. And the 5G, immediately I recognized the connectiveness was so much faster than my older phone. So 5G is available now. In manufacturing, it's available now. Now it's slowly rolling out, and Anca can probably talk about more about the deployment and rollout of 5G in manufacturing in more of a commercial.
Right.
Well, we heard recently from Verizon. I don't want just to talk about one company, but we did hear from them in a roundtable that actually they have something called the 5G lab. And so they're looking for doing pilots with people who are interested in this. And they have started doing various experiments related to manufacturing. Actually, they have an effort with in the space of mobility related to autonomous driving, which again, 5G will be able to help tremendously because of the speed and the latency. So things are available today, but they are smaller when it comes to manufacturing. There are just some small pilots, but it is possible to start something like that. A company that wants to start playing with this, of course, it takes time, resources.
So we're running out of time. I think we've answered a lot of the questions. We talked about jobs. We talked about skill sets that are required. I got a screwball question for you. And that is, we hear about COVID and 5G and these conspiracy theories that it's all interrelated. And you guys have any take on that? It's a silly question, but I thought we'd end with that just for some fun.
So
how do you even answer that, right, Pat?
It's like, so for fun.
Excuse me, let me take the chip out of my head while you answer this.
Yeah, so the COVID pandemic is part of a strategy conceived, by global elites, such as Bill Gates. He's kind of been out there. We've heard a few others, and 5G can kind of help roll out, vaccines with tracking chips that would later be activated by 5G and the technology and cellular networks and all of that, and then contact tracing and all of that fabulous stuff. There's been some things with MIT, with researchers and, people who are kind of keeping abreast of, kind of all of these conspiracy theories. It's kind of really difficult to determine, if any of this has any merit. I think we kind of got to kind of wait and see, to determine if who's received any vaccines in the developing world. We know that right now there's not good record keeping with regard to that, so we read them. Yeah.
We'll leave it there, Pat. We're at 9:30 and we're, silly. I want to say one thing about conspiracy theorists. They always give the government huge credit for being really sophisticated and smart, and they got it all figured out. And it's a grand, big plan that, people are able to keep secret for decades. And you think the government is not that sophisticated. We interact with government every day and think, oh my gosh, there, but for the grace of God, go I. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So this was a great Anca. Pat, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. I learned a lot. I learned about network slicing today. I had no idea what that was. And now I understand how that could be really beneficial. So much information to absorb, especially around how 5G technology is going to make it all possible. But I appreciate your time today. Thank you, Anca. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
So for our viewers today, please join us again next week for episode 3 on Tuesday, July 28th, as we welcome our member company, Configit, for a discussion on achieving ROI with Industrial Internet of Things, IIoT solutions. They're one of the best in the business at that. And they were a case study with us in our 2020 report, an actual live case study. So join us to talk about that case study. It's really going to be exciting. We're going to break down this case study and how that relates to what we're talking about today and what we're talking about around IIoT. So we're looking forward to getting some questions answered and learning more firsthand about their experience with IoT implementation. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you next